I was in Camberg, and it was very ad hoc. It was very last minute. President Song, he was appointed very recently, and he wanted to do a tour of Asia and then America and like then Europe, kind of very specifically in that order of importance, right? But True Mother really wanted him to come to Europe first. This is a very direct order from True Mother. Go to Europe first. They really need you, and in some ways, yes, we do, and we know President Song from before, and from what I understood, Spirit was very different from how he was then. He was very very calm, and very put together, and very loving, right? Which I understood when he was present. He was very kind of intense, right? Probably justifiably so. We're very hard to deal with, I'm sure. But yes, it was very nice. I had a very good experience. But yes, I wanted to first go through kind of the main important points that were mentioned. And there was a lot. So I have kind of filtered through. You might be like, wow, they shared a lot. They shared even more, but I felt these were some good points to share, and I'll mention those, and then depending on the time, I don't want to be too long since it's a report, I'll share some personal experiences towards the end. So, Peter and Camberg. It was, as I was sharing, it was very last minute, and so I think my impression why President Song was chosen is because he is very action oriented. Right? He gets results, and he really works hard to reach what he puts his mind to. So I think he's very appropriate for this kind of time and age. And so he mentioned there are 4 points of awareness that we must have in this age. I don't know if you can see, it's quite small. But the first one is attendance. The era of substantial active attendance. An era in which we substantially attend Heavenly Parent and True Parents, hear God's voice, and live accordingly. The second is the era of pursuit of the original essence. An era transcending the Old, New, and completed Testament age, seeking for the original essence, centered on the teaching of the Chonulguk era. And then loyalty of heart, an era of the loyal heart transcending Hyojong, an era of substantial national restoration wherein loyal patriots of Chonulguk set the example of the loyal heart. And then result, era of presenting our witnessing results, an era in which we restore the heart we had in the early days, witness actively, and report of the result to Heavenly Parent. Right? So I think these 4 points will be the most encompassing of the coming time. The international headquarters are very much focused. Since actually COVID, membership have been stagnant, or in some countries even declining. And this is a really serious thing. True Mother has been focusing a lot on the new providence in Korea and the Chongpyeong providence and so forth. And now she's looking around and saying, wow, our communities aren't growing. And as Reverend Young, the ex-continental leader for North America, he shared, if you don't witness, if you don't share God's heart and God's love, you really do not understand God's heart. If you're not willing to share it, if you're not speaking about it, then you don't really understand God's heart. And that hit me very hard. It was actually Laura who shared that morning Hyundai with me. She would, whenever there was something very inspiring, she'd send it to me. I know, maybe Laura doesn't remember, but she sent this Hyundai to me, and very inspiring. And that actually was one of the reasons I felt so strongly for witnessing for a long time now. So, there are 3 key objectives for international headquarters. And so, first is substantial national restoration through substantial active witnessing. And so, witnessing and church expansion should be tested in 3 countries first, then spread throughout the region. In the future, all provincial organizations, including groups affiliated with Family Federation for World Peace, must unite and work together towards the same objective. And that one objective is national restoration. So explosive witnessing results, practical church growth, and national restoration. And this was actually very interesting because President Song, having been to Europe for 10 years, for him, one of the most important things were, actually, what's the word? It is, what's the truth and what's the word when you, transparency, truth and transparency. And so actually, when he actually asked all of the sub-regional leaders and the continental leader to give a report, and he was like, I just want the facts, right? I want the realistic truth. I don't want some bloated report where you have one event and wow, this of 200 people attended, therefore we have 200 members in our nation. You know, none of that. Really, like, what's the real situation in each country? What are we facing? What's difficult right now? And what do we need to overcome? The next point, completion of Chonilguk through transparency and effective organization. So we have many different organizations that are working towards Chonilguk, right? We have UPF, YSP, Women's Federation, Citizens Federation for the Unification of Korea. I haven't heard of them before, actually, if I'm honest. Providential organizations, companies, etc., right? So we have a lot of good things, right? And even in Sweden, we have most of these. We don't have YSP. We don't really have any students at the moment, justifiably enough. And we have a big UPF meeting coming in October. We have Britta, who's doing amazing works for Women Fed. And we, of course, have our congregation. Realization of a heavenly unified Korea through a step-by-step approach and clear division of organized roles. So first is firm settlement of peace, establishing and stabilizing peace on the Korean Peninsula, exchange education, mutual exchange and education, national foundation of attendance of Heavenly Parent, peaceful reunification of the two Koreas. So this is, of course, still a very important focus to Mother. Actually, a big reason why she feels now witnessing is so important, because she heard from the reports in Korea that actually the community is stagnant. Not so much witnessing is happening. Not so many results are happening. And so, of course, if it's happening in Korea, it's most likely happening in other countries. And she's quite correct. So there are a few principles that President Song shared with us. International headquarters operating principles. First, our center. Advancing forward in absolute unity with True Mother. Now is the era of True Mother. We will completely align with True Mother. Rather than with your own thinking, you must know how to lead for the sake of world peace through attending God. Do not make God wait any longer. Do not leave God's only begotten daughter, the True Mother, in loneliness any longer. So that's our center. Second, the relationships. Continental and smooth communication with mission field personnel. We will ensure smooth communication and sharing. You must communicate. Communicate had been a problem up until now, and this became a problem. Song Yong-chon, you must establish international standards. During your speaking tour throughout the world, please elevate each region to a higher level. And this he focused a lot. Actually, the participants who were at the leaders meeting, a lot of young people came there, and all of them had the chance to speak to President Song directly. So we had, at one point we had lunch, and they just said, please share. Introduce yourself and share one thing. And then I was asked to go first, and I was like, oh God, so what do I share? Whatever you want. I was like, I said I love True Mother, right? And I was very grateful to be able to see True Mother in Korea. And then all the other participants, they stood up, second gen, and like, oh, you know, in Italy, you know, we've established a core team, right, of young people. And I was like, we do that in Sweden. I could have shared that. And I was like, yeah. And then in another country, oh, we've started giving divine principle lectures like the past month. I was like, we've been doing that since November with Uncle Tim, right? And there's so many things that everyone shared, and like combining all of those sharings, most of those things Sweden already had going. I was like, all right, True Mother is more. And then, however, at the end, Preston's song was like, it's really important that we appreciate and love True Mother this time. And I was like, yes, I shared the right thing, right? Investing with all sincerity. Churches that are equipped with sincerity and overflowing with true love, we will strive to guide members to become champions and take the lead on their own with sincerity. We must show sincerity. You should be able to work and demonstrate how much you love this country and God so that all people can truly feel it. You should be able to experience, feel, and act on your own initiative without true parents teaching you at every stage. This is life in the kingdom of heaven on earth. Practical growth. Practical church growth and tangible results. How to make witnessing and national restoration substantial. Until now, we have created many environments throughout the world. It is now time to strengthen our international foundation. Use science-based statistics and real numbers when reporting. Spirituality. Increasing church membership fueled by the Holy Spirit and the truth. In harmony with Chongsheng One, now is the time to receive cooperation from the spirit world. We must commit so that True Father can work with us. Since we have to practically work without rest on earth, give orders to the spiritual realm. As leaders who love your countries, the world, and peace, you must be able to hear God's voice. You must act from a position of attending God. Yes. So, those were the things that were... there is a lot more. And those that want, I'm happy to share some notes from the meeting and some slides and pictures. It's very detailed. I had one Austrian brother share. We looked at the notes together, and he shared with me. Very nice, organized. So those that want, there's a lot more there. But I felt I don't want to bore you with these details, right? For some of you, it's very important to hear. For some of you, like, meh, could have heard it, could have not, right? But more relevant is what is happening in Sweden, right? So, actually, from the time I was curious, as I shared before, there was at one point we were at a meeting where they wanted to have missionaries sent to different countries, and so I was attending this meeting, and they were really inspired to send missionaries to Sweden. And at one point, there's one sister, Yuri, she was like, and she did SDF. We did SDF together, and she is now the UPA leader for deciding where to send the cadets, the UPA people. And she was like, Peter, I have a serious question for you. I was like, yes. Do you want missionaries? And I was like, yes, of course. And she's like, oh, really? I thought you were going to say no, right? And now, as it turns out, during this meeting, Auntie Martine Masner, she came to me and she was like, so Peter, do you want missionaries from UPA? I was like, yeah, we would love them. Okay. They would be coming in September, August. And I was like, whoa. In August, September, that is too early. What if we're not ready, right? And she's like, I need an answer. I need to know if you're interested, right? Because they're deciding what countries to send missionaries to. And actually, with the core team, when I had been envisioning receiving missionaries and really start the growth of a community, I was expecting missionaries in like 1.5 years from now, right? That's like realistically. I was like, realistically, the community can change your hearts by then, and we can be more encompassing, more loving, more embracing, more accepting. And so we're speeding up that process. We're forced to receive missionaries a bit earlier than planned. So that's very exciting. And so we've actually been in contact, because we've been in contact with GPA. They're much more structured. We've had a few meetings. We just had our third meeting with them, where we had the chance to ask them questions, like okay, what do you expect from us? They've had meetings with us asking, okay, are you ready to accept people? What is your situation? I tell them the truth. I say, well, we don't have much witnessing going on, right? We basically have Sunday service, but we have a lot of young people that are in charge, right? So, anyways, they really like Sweden. And so GPA was like, we're going to come at the end of the summer, we're going to visit. Yes, Miguel. GPA is American SDF. And UPA is the blue people in the suits in all the videos in Korea. They do, what is it, I think a 5-year course or 7-year course or something. So, huh? YPIA. That's us. Woo! When they come, right? So basically we have been in contact with GP, and they're gonna come here. They're gonna see how it is, the potential, how is the community, how is the core team. They're very interested and excited to meet us. And then like in half a year from then, like January, they would have missionaries. While UPA is kind of like, do you want missionaries? Yes. Okay. 2 months from now, and just like, what's the support system? What's a support system? And so they were gonna come here, and they're just gonna, hardcore. Do they speak English? We don't know, right? So very, very different approach, and it's very exciting. So we've been talking about, whether they, staying in Gullmarsplan for them there, or somewhere else. Should they stay with me, or et cetera, right? And very, very exciting conversations. And so that's a little bit what's happening in Sweden, right? And it's quite amazing. Now with the new goals from Tremother, she's saying witnessing is important. What else is she saying? Become a religion. Become official religion. She said it's a focus. Why? Because of what happened in Japan, right? We're an organization there. That's why if we were an official religion, they wouldn't be able to persecute the Japanese movement as they are now, right? So Tremother's really like, please become religions so that you have some protection, right? And what is Sweden doing? Well, we're already doing that. What about witnessing? Tremother's saying witnessing is so important right now. The next 6 months, we have to have results. That's the 4th point, right? Results, right? And what is Sweden doing? We've been focusing, we've been preparing ourselves for witnessing. We've had Tim develop new Divine Principles slides, which I have listened to a lot of Divine Principles lectures. Tim is really, really good, right? We have a lot going for ourselves. They're saying also, appoint new young leadership. Right? And so, and what is like Europe, in every like kind of report, there's like a picture of me. I don't know how fair that is, but it's like, look, a new young national leader. And I'm like, well, it's in old news at this point. But it's true. This is really significant. We have something really good going on. What's another point that actually the GPA, they asked us, how's the relationship between the first and the second generation? Right? I think it's really good. I really think so. I mean, still today, like this, I go once a week, I go to Ingmar's place, and we have dinner together at her place. And that's really good. Because why? Because I don't have all the answers. And Ingmar has most of them. Right? She did it for so many years. You have no idea the crazy ideas I've had. And Ingmar's been like, do not do that. I'm like, but it's such a good idea. She's like, no, this horrible idea. She's really polite about it. But that's pretty much the consensus, right? She really helps us, right? And the same thing for you here, right? Why is it that many of the times in the Sunday service, why is it that I don't always sit by the young people? I sit with everyone. I try to. Well, it's because I actually talk to most of the first gen here. Because I want to hear. I always check in with everyone here, most time before I make a decision. Why? Because I don't know everything. And the first gen, you guys know so much, right? And so that's really precious. And I don't think, although we take it a little bit for granted here, that we have this really good relationship and that we communicate a lot. Not all countries have that, right? And so we have something really good going on here. And I want to emphasize this again. When I share about our Swedish community when I go abroad, although for us it seems like we're doing okay, there are certain things like, yeah, it's fine, but a lot of communities have conflicts at the moment between between the first and the second generation, right? So, we have many good things going on, right? We have a lot of young people involved and active and trying, right? With the wiser generation supporting us, right? So we have a lot going on. All right, so I want to share some. I think we have time for some stories. All right, so I was. This was a very last-minute meeting in Camberg, and so Matthew Hewish was speaking. He's like, he said, you should really come. You should really meet President Song. And I was like, well, it's really last minute. The flights are very expensive. He's like, you should really go. And I was like, okay, I'll go to meet President Song. He's like, okay, the only reason I will go, my main mission is to introduce you to President Song. And I was like, all right, then I suppose this makes it a firm commitment. Then I have to go, right? And so then I end up going. And so on the first day, I actually meet President Song in the kitchen, and I say, oh hi, I introduce myself, and he kind of he's very busy, obviously, right? So he just says hello, and then he keeps on walking. And then in the evening, we did this prayer by the Holy Ground, and so then Matthew Hewish like, I would like to introduce you now. I was like, okay. So we go there, and he looks at he says, this is Peter, he's the new national leader of Sweden, and I said, hello, my name is Peter, all right. And then he's like, looks at me and like, hi. And then he starts talking to Matthew Hewish. And I'm like, oh my, he didn't remember me at all. Like that was like right over his head, right? And then he meets a young pastor in Austria. And he's like, oh my God, thank you for your work. And he hugs them. I'm standing next to him. I'm like, I get a hi. And I was like, all right. And then later that evening, I was like, Matthew Hewish was like, well, that was a fail. He definitely didn't remember you. I was like, well, maybe he remembers me. He was like, no. And then later, the next day, we're in the hallway, and I'm like walking next to an ex-national leader, and from Hungarian ex-national leaders, working with the Camberg Providence, and he's Hungarian. So then President Song is like, oh, he looks at me, he's like, are you also Hungarian? And I'm like, no. Oof. Right? I was like, the one reason I'm here is to meet President Song, right? It's like, he doesn't even remember me at all, right? So, great stuff. Then, what happens later on is we have this lunch meeting together. And I say, oh, well, I'm really grateful for your mother. And I'm like, I felt, after I shared that, I was like, that's the most generic thing anyone could say. It's like saying I love food. It's saying I love True Mother in the church, right? It's like it's so non-special. It's like, wow, you like True Parents? Well, no crap, right? So, and I was like, oh, again, that's not. He's not gonna remember me because of that, right? And then I'm like, I'm kind of bummed out with all of this, right? It's like, yes, it's nice to network with people. It's nice to meet with people. It's nice to listen to these reports. But I'm still representing Sweden here. I really need to at least be acknowledged as a person, right? And so it goes on. And then there's another opportunity where President Song wants to have dinner with all the national leaders. However, the YSP leader, so Dr. Young, either way, the YSP leader wants to meet all the young people. And so I'm sitting there with all the young people, and we don't have YSP in Sweden. So I'm like, yeah, I'd rather be there with President Song, but I wasn't invited. It was like I wasn't sure if I should be with the national presidents or with the young people. So then, from nowhere, Lars comes and he's like, Peter, you're a national leader. You need to come to the meeting with President Song. And then I stand up, and then Anto Haslen says like, but you can, no, Bogdan Palmer, he was like, but you can stay here if you want, Peter. It's whatever you want. And then the YSP leader there sits there looking at me, and like, I have to his face be like, I want to go to President's Song. So, and Lars like, Lars comes again to my, and says, but Peter, President Song said all the national leaders. And the paramedic said, you can be with the cool people here, Peter. And I was like, stop speaking, Bogdan. Right? And so I was like, okay, you know what, I'll just stay here. And so then I sat there and they started communicating, and I'm sitting far enough from President Young with the vice speaker, where I can't speak to him, but everyone around me is speaking to him. So I was like, oh, I didn't even get to speak to him now. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna leave, right? So I stand up and I go, right? And I sit, and because I'm last, I actually get to sit right almost next to President Song. And there, again, actually Mike Balcom introduces me. And then I get to share. He's like, so what's happening in Sweden? And I shared. Well, I shared all the things that's happening in Sweden. Well, we have a young adult team guiding the community. We have, we started doing witnessing, we have a lot going on there. We're becoming a new religion, all of these things. And I was like, vindication, right? So, and also because it was really Dr. Mike Balcom, he was like, here, this is Peter, right? And so, yes, it was really a nice time in Camberg. It's always a beautiful place to go to. And so I had a very good time. And I know for a fact there are a lot of things happening, right, in Europe. And this point about communication, right? This is something we're really lacking in Europe. Yes, we get emails, right? And we forward them to you. I don't know how many of you read those emails, right? But there is information flow. It's just not really maybe so inspiring. But even within the communities, between nations, within each sub-region, right? We have a lot of miscommunication, and this is something we really want to work with and work as a team, right? So, I could go on, but I feel like I've reached 25 minutes, and I think that's good. So, really, thank you so much, and I thank you for the opportunity to go to Camberg. I wanted to finish with a prayer.